Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Thank you so much for joining us in this wonderful podcast of ours, Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Always a privilege to bring you life-changing, informative information. This time I've brought a baker who happens to be very passionate about monetizing a passion. We're going to find out how the baking business works and how she monetized it. And her name is Nametso Senoele. Welcome to the studio, Nametso Senoele.
Thank you very much, Mogobe.
Yeah. Ms. Senoele, let's kick things off by you telling the viewer who you are, sharing a little bit of your background.
Okay, so like you already said, my name is Nametso Senwelo. I am founder and creative director for a company called Sunflower Desserts. As you already mentioned, it's a bakery, but I think more appropriate term would be confectionery, because bakery is quite broad. It would mean sort of like the savory things as opposed to the sweet. So the appropriate term would be confectionery.
What is the real difference between a bakery and a confectionery?
A bakery would be sort of like your loaves, your buns, like really sort of like the savory stuff. But when you move to confectionery, you're referring to the cakes, the cupcakes, the sweet buns, and let's say everything sweet.
Okay,
Yes.
let's hear a little bit about the academic side of you, or your training, your professional training.
Actually, my professional training, it's funny, I never really trained in the chef aspect of things. That's what people always think I am, but I am not a chef. However, I did marketing management. That is my background. And immediately after that, I actually worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 8 years in the sales and marketing department.
Okay.
So hence I am saying monetizing your passion, because this has been my passion from a very young age.
When you in terms of studies, what did you pursue? What degree or?
So I pursued marketing management.
Okay.
Yes. So I did.
From UB?
No, it's actually outside the country. I did that through UNISA. It's actually a very interesting path. It wasn't as straight as someone would deem like an academic journey to be. Because initially, I think I've always liked baking, like I'm saying. So I did hospitality management. That's what I did in South Africa. But then I didn't go on to finish it, because I completed quite young. I was about 17 when I finished like my high school. So I was excited. It wasn't very clear what I wanted to do. But in my high school, I had particular interest in home economics. I performed exceptionally well, especially in home economics.
Maybe that's what introduced you to baking.
Definitely. It was like one of my favorite things. I mean, I was like just home economics and nothing else. So I was sort of like clear that I want to be in that space. Hence why I moved on to do hotel management. So that happened in Joburg in the International Hotel School. And we had a privilege of being posted in luxury hotels in Joburg. So I actually, I was an intern at the Michelangelo Hotel for like a year in the kitchen.
Right in Sandton.
Right in Sandton.
Wow.
Yes. So in the kitchen, I think that's when now it became very clear that which part of the kitchen am I interested in. Because I think when we grow up, we just think about like chef being someone who cooks. Like it's never really divided into saying this one focuses on the savory aspect, this one focuses on the pastry. So in the kitchen, you'll actually get to rotate the different kitchens. They'll have the hot kitchen, they'll have the halal kitchen and the kosher, and they'll actually have a pastry kitchen. So in all these kitchens, I had my best time in the pastry kitchen.
Wow.
It was a bit quiet, and there was a lot of sugar rush, I would say. But that's when I really thought this is something that I want to pursue.
And what impact did you say you had in those previous jobs before we talk about your current passion?
I always say we are a sum total of all our life events. And you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Something Steve Jobs wrote about.
Definitely. So when I look back, I'm like, okay, this was intentional, because shortly after that, after doing hotel management, I just took a gap year and went to the UK, of which then I continued to further explore. I worked in like a couple of shops, and then pastry really caught my eye. That's where I really started to appreciate like the 5-star type of dining, the Michelin stars. And then ultimately when I came back, I was like, okay, I think I've sort of found myself. I thought that's when I pursued marketing management with UNISA. And then after that, I went into the pharmaceutical industry. I was in the sales and marketing aspect of things. I worked my way up through the ranks, and then just before I left, I was actually responsible for 3 countries. I was based in Botswana, but I was also responsible for the Namibian market and South African market, but the Northwest province.
Working for which company?
I was working for Abbott Laboratories. I think now with the COVID, we are very familiar with the with the pharmaceutical company names, the producers, yes. So I've actually worked for one of the 2 global giants, being Abbott Laboratories, and I also worked for Sanofi.
We're going to talk about that in greater detail, but you mentioned something that caught my interest about you taking a gap year. To young, people coming fresh from school, how advisable is it to take a gap year? What are the pros and the cons?
I'd say it's very advisable. I mean, I think in my case, I finished school quite young. Like I'm saying, I completed because my mom used to work in a school, like in a primary school. So it was a question of, okay, I don't really have anyone to be with my child at home. So it's like, go school. That's how the whole thing started. So, and then the principal was just like, okay, since instead of her just being in the office, why don't you take her to a standard 1 class? So that's how I started school.
Yes.
So I was in a standard 1 class, and then I was bored, and then I was given work, and then I was just progressing well, just like the other kids. Yeah, and then when the year ended, when my mother asked, like, are we now ultimately going to register her because of her age? And the teacher gave a review to say, no, I think I'm very confident and happy for her to proceed. Hence why I was like sort of 2 years ahead of people my age.
Peers, yes.
Yes. So I think that's why also taking a gap year and all that, I wasn't behind, like in quotes, behind as in societal expectations that at a certain age you're supposed to be doing this. So it was never really much of a pressure to say, no, time is
my
ticking.
question is, do you advise others to do likewise, to take gap years?
Definitely. Gap years are very, very advisable, provided, of course, I think one of the things why people don't is they'll probably not even know where to start, they don't even know where to go. But gap years definitely are such an eye-opener, especially traveling to Europe or the US, anywhere outside the country, so that you can, I think when we are younger, we have such a spongy mentality. We tend to absorb everything that we see.
Because before, during our time, there used to be a thing called TS.
Yes,
now,
yes.
in the absence of TS, isn't the
Then
next best
what?
thing to
Yes,
take a year off to learn about the world?
Yes, because even when I finished, there was no TS. So I guess that was my own TS.
Yeah.
Yes, but a much more advanced one. I learned quite a lot, I must say.
TS means Tirol's Chaba, National Service.
Definitely.
For those who might not know. The art of starting small. Can we talk about this in the context of your confectionery business? What inspired it, and how did you start?
So the art of starting small is something that really crystallized as I went further into growing the business. I then realized that initially when I started, because I started just with my own savings and really started from my home kitchen. So, and I was a bit scared. It's just that I think I must say we do have support in this country. Like as much
That's
as we
good.
would say, yes. There are facilities where you'll be assigned a business consultant absolutely
Like
free
Leah.
of charge, like Leah. That's exactly where I went, because I had for you to start a business, go and register, and because I needed a bit of paperwork, and I didn't know where to go, because remember I was in corporate before, so I wasn't familiar with like all this entrepreneurship and all that. So that was actually my first stop. I registered as a client, and then the business advisor who was assisting me was like, okay, so you're interested in baking and all that, when are you starting? So I was like, no, I'm waiting to apply for funds, like I'll get a loan or like she just looks really like, why do you need to wait? Because all the raw materials and the equipment that you need, you already have them in your house. You have an oven, you have baking tins. This is something you've already been doing. So why do you need to wait? So that now that is becoming a business, you need to wait for the money to come and then start. Just go back home and continue exactly the way exactly the way you've been doing it. And then this time around, the only difference is you'll be selling it.
Yeah.
So I think the selling aspect is the one that really gives us a bit of a, like, okay, but you have been doing this. Now that I've been doing it and now I need to sell it. I think that's the transition where most people, like, that's where the bottleneck thing.
Because even from the point of view of Angel Network Botswana, for instance, one of the things we consider is whether you have traction, whether you have proof of concept, whether you've done something in terms of sales.
Yes.
So what you're saying is very important.
Definitely. But then remember, when you're coming from a corporate environment where you're working for a multinational, there's departments, like everything just happens. If you need to do this, you submit it to this person that's responsible for it. You tend to be very, I think, spoiled in terms of having resources around you. But when you transition to entrepreneurship, you are literally like everything. You are marketing, you are legal, you are finance manager, you are everything. So it's a bit, I think it's intimidating, especially when when you were privy to resources before. Like, you are like, how am I possibly going to compress all these things into one person?
So when did you actually start after your conversation with the Leah official, and how did it go?
So I spoke to her, I remember it was November 2016, because I also wanted to register the company. It was all the legalities that I had to do. So after that, I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. I'm just going home and keeping quiet. And then she gave me a call like a month later. She was like, how are you doing? Have you made any sales? What are your challenges? Just doing the routine stuff to just check how I'm doing and what kind of interventions can they recommend for me. So I was like, actually, I have not done anything. But in the meantime, I was still baking, because like my son's friends would literally come over. They knew, or like the mom knows how to bake. So whenever they visit my son, they come with like Tupperwares to come and pick, because I was literally baking all the time. Yeah. So she's like, but you're already giving, like, you're giving these things out for free. Tell the very kids you are giving to tell their parents that I owe X amount because I brought the stuff home. So that's sort of like how it started. And then we got an invitation for a birthday party for one of the kids. And then I called the mom and said, I actually make cakes and cupcakes. She did not hesitate, because she had tasted the stuff before, remember? So she placed an order for like 20 cupcakes. Jeez, that was like a big order. I remember I finished the order at just after 12 at night, because it had to be delivered like in the morning.
Yes.
So that's how the whole thing started. I was like, okay, now I'm in business. And then another thing is, because I knew other people in corporate, there's a lady, she actually has her own marketing agency. She ordered something from me, and then she said, may you kindly deliver, like personally deliver, I would love to have a word with you. And then she said, I'm giving you the money, I'm just going to give you a bit extra, but this is why I am doing this. You have started. Hence, you have started, I am going to support you, and do not spend this money on anything else. You're going to go back and you're going to buy more baking tins, and you're going to buy the equipment that the business needs. So I think that really sunk, because she's not even like my relative or anything. I'm like, why would someone be so interested in my development? So I took it to heart, and that's how
she was an angel.
Yes, she was an angel. So that's when I realized that it's actually very important to start small, because as the business grows, the dynamics also grow. So it's always important to start understanding business challenges from a very a smaller size.
One of the things that is often emphasized, the vision, having clarity in your vision. Who taught you that, and what was your vision?
So in my opinion, I think having vision, not just in business even, I think just as a person, is something that's actually very important. So I used to do like vision boards myself. Like I used to, at the beginning of the year, go for a vision board class to say, I want to achieve this is how I'm going to be achieving it, and all that. And then also, because I used to be in corporate, we used to have like targets, and then we'll have quarterly reviews. Like you meet with your manager to say, okay, you were supposed to do $2 million and you're expected to do like quarter of that every. Where are you? What sort of support do you need? Do you need marketing material? So it was something that I already knew. I was like, if ever I'm going to start a business.
Who taught you all that?
I think both corporate and reading. I read quite a lot. I watch motivational speakers, and so the thing of the vision board has always come up and it caught my attention. I think it also holds you accountable, and it keeps you grounded because you're not all over the show. It makes it so much easier to choose. If you're given 10 things in front of you, you gravitate towards the ones that are aiding towards your vision. So it tends to keep you in line.
And you mentioned to me, I think it was 2018, you say you attended one of my talks.
Oh, yes, yes.
How was that? What does that, did that help you?
Definitely. Something that I really, you know, for me, 2017 and 2018, obviously before COVID, like I would be at almost like any workshop that has to do with entrepreneurship, business, like finance, anything, I will be there because I realized that I'm now in a very different field. This is now entrepreneurship. It's up to you to make it work. And it's also up to you to get the relevant information to make it work. Because remember, in corporate, if you're a marketer, you're just a marketer, sales and marketing, that's all. If you need anything else, there are other people employed to do that. So now I realized I need to equip myself with all these necessary skills to make sure that, you know, in business, I think we often make a mistake of, you know, business, it's making the cake, but it's actually in selling the cakes. So you need to understand how the money
both,
aspect,
I guess.
Yes, you need to understand how the money aspect of things work, because yes, you can sell and then your revenue is high, but then your profits are non-existent because you're not managing your cash
I remember
flows.
this would be a seminar organized by Key Wealth.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
How did it go? What did you learn from that?
I learned quite a lot of things. Like you should really, like in terms of, it's funny, like the guy, like the person who owns Key Wealth he used to work for insurance before.
France.
Yes, France. He was in insurance before, and he was actually.
And he's appeared in many nuggets, by the way. You can just type Mohammed France and they'll come up. About 6 or 7.
6, that's great. I'm not surprised, by the way. So yes, he was responsible. When I used to work for Sanofi, he was the one who was doing like our insurance and all that. So when I heard that he went and opened his own business, I wasn't surprised because he used to have this energy and vigor about money and everything. So I started following him quite closely. I learned a lot. I mean, he even brought like people, like a speaker from South Africa, the financial bunny. Like I literally attended all of them, and he brought yourself. So with you, I was very impressed because I could easily relate, because I think sometimes we look far for like mentors and people, like you read about people, but you not really meet them in person. So when someone says something and they're actually accessible, like I'm talking to you now, it makes it so real. You start believing that it can actually happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Chasing one rabbit. Why chase a rabbit at all?
Because a rabbit is very tricky to catch.
To catch.
Yes, but really it's just a figurative way of saying it. Chasing one rabbit to me means like just do one thing, focus on this thing until you completely understand it before you can branch out to other things. I think that will be my question at the end, because I've seen you very diverse. I'm not yet at that stage where I can say I'm branching completely from bakery, I'm trying something else. Maybe I will get there, but in my opinion, I think it's very important for you to focus in one thing, especially in the beginning, and make a name for yourself in that, like in the bakery space. You know, people should actually know that there's sunflower desserts. If they're thinking about a cake, create a space in the consumer's mind. So I think that takes repetition, that takes perseverance, and a lot of money, by the way, in terms of marketing and all that. So I think don't spread your resources too thinly across the board.
So relating to your confectionery business, when did you say that it's now settled, you've chased this rabbit and you're satisfied with how far or are you still chasing that same rabbit?
I think I'm still chasing the same rabbit, but now in different directions, but still same rabbit. Let me just expand on that. So initially, like I said, it started as a home bakery, and then obviously we got traction, it started growing and all that, but that was before COVID. So the market segment was completely different. Like the target market would be like your weddings, your kids' parties, like really events, because there used to be events and all that. So I was so caught up in that thing thing of doing events, which I think now COVID has really become a blessing in disguise. Because if it wasn't for this change in trajectory, I wouldn't have maybe gone out of my comfort zone to think about what else can I venture into. So now when COVID came, there were no celebrations, there were no weddings, there were no social gatherings, but obviously, like I had said, monetizing your passion, there are still bills to be paid. You start being very creative in terms of now, how do I get into other aspects of the business? So I was like, maybe we can start selling like smaller items, like maybe 4, 2, 3 cupcakes, and then reach more people, because then it's affordable, then you are increasing your market size. And then that also came into play to say, okay, now why don't we focus more on corporates? Because remember, I was in corporate, I was in marketing. I know that they need to be marketing material. There are things like each and every corporate really has a marketing budget. It's about you communicating speaking to that objective. So I was like, okay, why don't we go ahead and start doing corporate events? Yes, so that's what I started with. That's when COVID started. We started doing the corporate events. I sent out proposal, and the response was quite positive, because I was a bit flexible also to say it's not exactly what I send you. If there are any needs within your organization, we can always curate so that we meet your needs. It's not about us selling to you. It's about solving your internal problem.
So would you then offer to deliver?
Definitely. Delivery, I've realized, has always been a key thing, because remember, corporate people are busy. They don't have time to move around or whatever, or even if maybe there's a delivery vehicle or whatever, like they're busy doing what the business needs. So I think as a business, you need to offer your package as a whole, including bringing the products at the client's doorstep.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you say you have a clear marketing strategy, and if so, what is it?
I have since refined, because beginning of this year, that's when I thought operating from home was no longer like an option, because the business was growing and I needed to employ more people. So it really wasn't working. I had to move and look for a space, which is where we are now. We're in a commercial space. So that opened up a whole lot of avenues, because remember, now you're paying rent, you're paying water, you're paying electricity. So it means even the revenue has to make sense for you to be where you are. So hence why we added other products, and then just started seeing what other segments can we add, how can we increase the market share.
Could you just describe, since you haven't brought a cake here to show us, could you describe your offerings? What are you offering? What are the various items?
So the various items will be, we have a walk-in menu, like where you can just walk into our facility. You'll find cakes, like we'll
Where is that facility?
It's actually in Gutla Incubator. It's a Leah facility.
Whereabout is that?
It's in G West Industrial. Yes. So you can literally like walk in, you'll have a cake by the slice. You can have cupcakes, minimum 4, because then you're probably buying for the office, or even yourself, you wouldn't want to have one. Yes, so we start there where you have a walk-in menu, and we also do take the custom orders, because I mean, there are always celebrations. Every day is someone's birthday, but we've sort of like reduced the sizes to make it more affordable. And the fact that it's not a big celebration, then it should make financial sense to say my child or myself.
So apart from the cupcakes, what else?
We have cakesicles that are very trendy.
What's
it's
that?
A cake coated with chocolate, and it comes looking like an ice cream. Yes, we also have cake pops. It's very popular with kids also. It's a cake but it looks like a lollipop. And we also have macarons. Macarons are a French delicacy. It's actually a biscuit sandwich with cream.
Okay.
Yes.
Any of these delicacies designed by you? Is it any of it proprietary? In other words, have you registered some kind of protection over your mix?
I'm heading that direction, because another thing in terms of going back to monetizing your passion and everything, and creating other revenue generating streams, it came to my attention that, you know, intellectual property is another aspect of making money. Hence why I think I've been working a lot behind the scenes in terms of what can I protect, what aspect of this, maybe the design or all that. But yeah, being a lawyer yourself, you know, we cannot say much about that.
Yeah. You say it's important to build to scale, and I think it's very important that you should design your business to grow.
Definitely.
What action have you taken in this connection, and how are you building to scale?
I must say, I think from the very beginning, it was a question of, yes, I'm working in this business, as in me doing the production. However, it cannot carry on like that forever, because the more the business grows, the more exhausted I'll be. So I started sort of like equipping myself with the necessary knowledge to say, how is the business going to continue producing very same results, but having someone else do that on my behalf? Hence why I think I started dividing it to say, we'll always have like the luxury range where it takes like, you'll charge accordingly anyway, but you'll also have like an off-the-shelf thing. Hence, those things are very easy to teach. I mean, you can just get someone, even if they don't have a baking experience. And another thing I'll touch into is we also do like baking classes. So everyone that gets employed in our business undergoes the training that we even offered like to the public to make sure that you're producing a sunflower dessert standards.
What did you say differentiates your cakes or cupcakes or series of offerings from all the rest? Is there a differentiator? Is there any, what they call special value proposition?
A special, yeah. Definitely, I would say that first of all, I think let's just acknowledge and accept that in Botswana we don't have that good of a customer service. I think for me, having been outside the country a couple of times to different countries, is something that sort of like sticks out. Yeah. Like we don't have that culture of customer service up front. So I was like, let me just focus on this as a differentiation strategy, because for someone to come and experience good customer service, they'll most likely come again. So that's like a first, let's go for the low-hanging fruit without even being technical. Just start with a basic good customer service, you know, a bit of a follow-up. How was the things that you bought and all that. So I've seen it to be very effective, because the customers that we started with, even in 2017, they're still buying from us, and they actually recommend us to their family members and everyone else. Wow. And remember, even now that I'm saying we've added the corporate leg to it, when I thought about it initially, I think it sounded very complex, only to realize that this very same customers who are pleased actually work somewhere. So those are your corporate clients. So I just literally took a list of our existing clients and said, I would like to discuss with you now, not from a personal perspective, but now let's talk about where you work. So it was a bit of a smooth transition in regards to the people were already getting good customer service, so they were quite comfortable to even recommend us to where they work.
The market you deal with deals with sugar or sweet things, and those things have been getting a bad rep lately, because people want to move to healthy diet and healthy choices. Well, how are you responding to that?
It's actually been a request every now and then to say, you know, my aunt is diabetic, or like, do you have any dietary requirements? I've deliberately decided not to move into that space, because I think looking at the business size, every time you add a product, it comes with a whole lot of aspects. You'll probably need to buy new baking tins, new equipment, and then the marketing aspect of it, you need to now look for how you're going to speak to those people, of which I think at this level, I'm not ready for that. I think I just want to really monetize where I am, and then as the business grows and it has like resources to venture into other arms, then it's something worth considering.
But don't you think, given the rate at which environmental consciousness is rising, you should nevertheless make those the baby steps?
Definitely. I'm not completely not doing it, because one of the things is just that now it's COVID. I used to travel a lot for like expos outside the country. So I had already actually identified a supplier who could help me with a couple of things. It's just that it never took off now that we couldn't travel anymore, and a couple of things. So I was like, let me just hold on to the company's resources, focus on making money with what we already have, as opposed to adding something new in uncertain times. Okay. So I think post-COVID definitely is something that we're going to be considering.
Okay.
Yes.
Talent doesn't have to be used in its raw form. That means it has to be cultivated.
Definitely.
Tell us more about that. Can you break that down a bit more?
So I think there's often the misconception of, say for example, in my instance, I'm a baker. It doesn't mean that I have to bake to make money. There are so many other things that are baking related that one can do. For example, we don't only bake, we actually have classes as well. So we've registered another arm which mainly deals with like the academy side of things, which stemmed from the baking aspect. And then now we've got another brand on board, of which we are brand ambassadors. They are a flour company, so we use the flour to do demonstrations and all that. That's also monetizing the core. So we're looking more into just branching out and monetizing the baking aspect as a whole, not necessarily just baking and selling the cakes.
How does the academy work
So we actually have 5 classes at the moment. It's just the baking beginners, where you just say, no, I just want to learn how to bake. Maybe I'm a mom, I'm busy, but I have kids. I would like to maybe a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning just bake at home. So we cater for that. It's just a day's course will teach you all the basics and give you the recipes to go home with. Yes, and then the other one is you'll realize some people actually know how to bake, but they don't know how to decorate. So you'll just come mainly for decorating. Yeah, just how to decorate a cake, how to decorate cupcakes. And then there's a growing interest in our market, I think mainly because of the government regulations. We'll get deeper into that, where people really want to start their own businesses. So we are like, okay, we've been in the business for a long time now, I'd say. I think we've developed, we've developed the necessary skills. You know, we are in a position where we can say we can impart skill because of experience and everything else that we have done. So if you want to start your own business, then you can come for a week's course also. That one will include the pricing aspect of things and the marketing to say, when you complete this course, you'll be able to start your own business.
So some might say that you are actually training your opposition.
No, not necessarily. I think in business there's something that I learned to say, for you can make money with selling the products, yes, but then you need to ultimately go further down the value chain.
I meant to say your competition.
Yes, you need to ultimately go further down the value chain. So what it means is you can start by selling cakes, but ultimately you should even look into supplying bakers and then ultimately go into producing the bakery products. So I think that should be a gradual step, especially when you're looking into scaling a business. But that is completely personal. Some people just want to really just have a bakery, that's it. But for me, as I already alluded, I would like to scale it to the highest, to the highest possible way where it can possibly go, to even producing my own flour, my own icing sugar.
With the advent of AFTA, where borders are coming down, tariffs are being attacked in terms of trying to have that common area for Africa. What is your company doing to explore other markets?
I think for me, as a growth strategy, ultimately my vision is to grow the business using the franchise model. Because the franchise model is borderless. It doesn't limit you to only operating in the country that you're operating in. And another thing is, with bakery, it's a easily replicable model. Like if we take, for example, like the likes of McDonald's, you need to get, there's actually a name for it where they say, you need to create systems that can leverage ordinary people to produce extraordinary results.
I've heard that before.
Yes, yes. So that is my kind of thinking, to say, I'm coming up with recipes that you can literally anywhere in the US, in the UK, you can just teach someone to do this and they'll produce it exactly the same way you would produce it in Botswana, which is why I think that's how people end up with franchises. Yeah.
You talk of agility, and just a thought popped into my head whether this agility involves what you mentioned about chasing after other rabbit holes or other rabbits, or agility in what sense?
Agility in the sense that a business is not a constant, it's forever changing. Take, for example, like the marketing strategy that would work for company A has now become irrelevant because of COVID. The dynamics have completely changed. So one, in business, I think you need to be very agile. You need to be able to move with the times. Don't be too fixated and say, this is the strategy and we are sticking to this. I think companies like Nike, they actually don't have like a 5-year strategy. They call them sprints. They have 3-month sprints. They plan for 3 months. After 3 months, they plan for another 3 months. I think they've come to realize that...
Because of COVID, or even before?
Not even before. I think they've come to realize that things are forever changing, like in the market. Today you are here, tomorrow there's COVID, but you can't just be stuck in one strategy to say, this is how we're going to do things. You need to move with the times. In my instance, I had wanted initially to really grow my business in the wedding kind of space, because like here the weddings, like where there's like a wedding.
Weddings are still going on.
They're still going, but not as big as they used to be. Remember, for us, it's size matters. Like the bigger the cake, the more the money for us.
Yes.
So initially, that was sort of like the bigger model to like the model to say we're going to be focusing on custom-made product because the market was there. So now that COVID is here, there are no events. We can't just be stuck and say we are waiting for weddings to come back. You need to evolve. You need to move on and still offer the products that are relevant that people will continue buying. So, and the market always sort of like gives you feedback to say for example, there are products, I'll just use maybe not my particular product. There are cars that are very popular that someone will buy this car and then they'll pimp it. Like what
Pimp my ride.
What customers are basically telling you is you have a good product, yes, however, we like it this way. So if the business owner could be agile enough and listen to what the clients are saying, you can have the same model but then maybe do a sports version because the customers have already told you that they want it. So that is more along the lines of
that's the agility you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Borderless mentality, I touched on it when I was talking about AFTA. Do you want to expound on it?
Borderless mentality, I think we've sort of started the conversation in terms of growth strategy for Sunflower Desserts is looking really into the franchise model, which hence the borderless mentality.
Yes.
I think oftentimes, like in Botswana, because of a small population and maybe the lack of exposure and travel, every time I've realized people when they think of starting a business, you only think your market size is people in Botswana, which is actually not true. Your market size is the world, is the globe. So hence why I'm saying we should have a borderless mentality. You can reach the masses by maybe selling online. Amazon doesn't have a store anywhere else, but how many people?
They do have large warehouses, but in America.
Yes, but then like people in Botswana are still buying from us. People from all over the world are still buying from them. Why? Because they've got a borderless mentality. They put the aspect of things that make it easy for people around the world to access that product.
So it is coming when we'll be able to buy your cakes online.
Definitely, it's something we currently have a website, however, it doesn't have a payment gateway. So lately, especially after COVID, we've been having a lot of calls from people outside the country who will say, my cousin or my mom or whoever is in Botswana, I would like to send them a gift. And then the question becomes, okay, now how do I pay? So that's where the bottleneck is. So we're going more towards like online
and you have
payment.
to send them an account or something.
Yes, so it would just be ideal if you could just pay online with a Visa card. And then I think that will also, now going back to the ultimate vision of wanting to be a franchise, the more you do that, then more people in other countries get to understand that you exist. And when you ultimately open shop in that country, then you've already sort of like established yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
In terms of 5, 10, or even 20 years looking down, what is your vision for the company, for the bakery, for the confectionery business?
Vision, I would say the short term, like when you talk short term, is to really make Sunflower Desserts a household name, firstly in Botswana. I think it's always best, even the prototype model teaches you that consider your own home ground as like a practice, like refine your skills where you are. Learn the different challenges that come with the franchise model, learn everything, and then go to other countries. So I would say medium term is really to venture into the South African market. I think it's an advantage that we are actually just 4 hours away from them, and our population is like, what, 54?
Almost 60.
Almost 60 now.
Up,
Yes, with like take just Gauteng province alone. Like our population is Soweto. So I think if you can venture into South Africa, even starting with Gauteng province alone, just practice your model, refine it, spread it around, and then move into other African countries. So that is sort of like the long-term vision, moving into
5 years, 10 years.
I would say for South Africa, I'm looking at 2 years because I've done quite a lot up to date. Yeah, I've done quite a lot. It should really happen in about 2 years. And then in about 5 years, obviously going to other African countries, that will probably be the same time as going global.
I forgot to ask you this at the beginning. Sunflower dessert.
Yes.
What informs the name? How did it come about?
It's actually it's a combination of a lot of things. When I registered the name, I hadn't thought of, I was only thinking about cakes, but I was like, if I say sunflower cakes, then I'm sort of limited. Like people will only be thinking about cakes. What about cupcakes? What about desserts? What about other sweet things that I'll ultimately want to do? So I didn't want to limit myself. But then the sunflower itself, it's a very bright It's a bright thing, and the thing is, it always stands out in its field and spreads seeds of happiness. So I was like, that sort of defines my personality. So yeah, I'm bright, I'm yellow.
Yeah, yellow bone, always smiling.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, it makes perfect sense. Now, this is the part of the show where you get to ask me a question if you have one.
Definitely. I think back to my aspect of chasing one rabbit, I think you've decided to chase
A number of
a
rabbits.
number of rabbits. I've always wanted to understand that how does one deviate from that core? Like you started off as a lawyer and then now there's restaurants. There's like how do you divert from the core to other aspects?
It was pretty much the same as you, where you realize that where you are is a bit limiting. As you embark on your personal development journey, you get exposed to new ideas, new things, and then you realize your limitlessness, and you realize that the path that you've created for yourself is too restrictive, and you can have a better impact in terms of employing more people, in terms of playing in greater fields of economic endeavor by getting out of your profession, because in the nature of a profession itself, it's restrictive.
Yes.
You have the orklapa, you have a limited path to walk through. So it came to a point where I wanted to diversify beyond what I was doing. Started in the early 2000s, and then I made a clear break in 2013 where I physically left the management, the day-to-day management of the law firm. So I haven't looked back since. And in that time, the business, especially the property business, has grown. It's more than doubled since, more than actually tripled since.
Wow.
So that's what happened. And
So
then because what we do, we are mainly in real estate. The good thing about real estate is that it creates possibilities for you to leverage it for other purposes.
Yes.
Because whether it's restaurants, we're using our own real estate. Whether it's lodges, we're using our own real estate.
Yes.
Whether it's a law firm itself, we're using our. So the real estate is a foundation for the principal business of real estate, but as well as a foundation of other, if you like, sister businesses that have grown from it.
So do you actually get partners as you go along? Like, say,
Yes,
for example,
partners take many forms. There are some who have limited shareholding. There are some who are employees. There are some who have no interest. They are franchise holders. So we have different forms of partnerships that we get involved in. Although what we try to do is to try and retain a measure of control in most of these businesses.
Awesome. I think I'll definitely start considering it. It's not as scary as I thought. I think you've really laid the foundation to say, I think your point of leverage is the property aspect of things.
Yes.
Then you can sort of like have any businesses in any of the
Yes,
properties.
you can grow from there.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think this is a good time for you to talk to the viewers and share with them one powerful motivational message, looking at that camera, something that they can take home.
So to the viewers at home, I'm not going to say something very long. I'm just going to be short and straight to the point to say, be fearless in your pursuit of wanting to be great. Don't worry about what society says. Follow your heart. Thank you.
Okay. Then it would also be nice if you can give them all the details, where you're accessible on social media, where they can reach you any which way, email, WhatsApp.
So our company is Sunflower Desserts. We are on Facebook as Sunflower Desserts. We are also on Instagram, and our phone lines are 311-0227. And the WhatsApp line also, it's 71410195. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for being a wonderful guest. You've done very well, and you've been very generous.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.